This is Swiss Family Robinson, SFR Chapter 3. The Tree House. When I rose from my bed the next day, I said to my wife, "Does it not seem, my dear, as if God had led us to this place, and that we should do wrong to leave it?" "What you say may be quite true, so far as it goes," she said, "but I must tell you that the midday heat is more than we can bear, and that if we stay here, we may have to keep watch at night. There are no doubt wild beasts of some kind that will find us, and we should not trust our dogs too much. They may lose their lives in a fight with them." "I dare say you are right," I said, "but I do not yet see how we can cross the stream. We shall first have to build a bridge." The boys were now all out of their beds, and while my wife went to milk the cow and cook some food, I made my plans known to them. They were all glad when they heard that we were to leave our tent on the beach, and each said he would help to build the bridge. The first thing to be done was to find some strong planks. A plank is a thick piece of lumber. And Fritz, Ernest, and I went down to the shore and got in the boat, which the tide took down to the bay. On a piece of land which lay to the left, we could see some large dark thing, round which flew a flock of seagulls. We put up a sail and caught a gust of wind which had sprung up, and this soon brought the boat to the spot. We made no noise, but crept up the shore step by step. Fritz was the first to realize that what we had found was the huge shark he had shot in the sea. We cut off some rough skin, which we thought might serve for files. A file is a tool that they use to cut things. And then we went back to the boat. I glanced back at the shore before I got in, and to my great joy saw some of the planks and poles from the wreck lying on the ground not far off. Our next task was to bind these so as to make a raft, which we tied to the stern of the boat, and then, by the use of our oars, soon made our way up the stream to the place where the bridge was to be built. The others were glad to see us back so soon, and ran to meet us. Jack had a cloth in his hand, in which was a store of crayfish and crabs just caught in some of the nooks of a rock of the stream. "Do not fail to give God thanks," I said, "that He has placed us where we can pick up more food than we can eat." I would take a long time to tell how we brought all the wood up to the spot, built layers of stones in the stream, and put the planks one by one in place. It was late at night when we left off work and once more sought our tent. The next day we saw the sun rise and took our first meal in haste, for we knew we should have a long day's toil. That means hard work. All the supplies that we could not take with us were left in the tent, the door of which was made safe by a row of casks that we put round it. My wife and Fritz soon led the way. The cow went next, then the donkey, with Franz on his back. Jack left the goats, and on the back of one of them sat the ape. Ernest took charge of the sheep, and I brought up the rear as chief guard. We took care to cross the bridge one at a time, and found it bore our weight well. But once or twice we thought the cow would step in the stream or fall off the boards when she went to the sides to drink. Just as we had left the bridge, Jack cried out, "Be quick! Here is a strange beast with quills as long as my arm." The dogs ran, and I with them, and found a large porcupine in the grass. It made a loud noise, and shoved its quills at the dogs, making them bleed. At this Jack shot at the beast, which fell dead on the spot. My wife's first thought was to dress the wounds made by the quills, which had stuck in the nose of one of the dogs, while the boys made haste to pluck some of the quills from the skin of their strange prize. At last our march came to an end, and I saw for the first time the great trees that my wife had told me of. They were of vast size, and were, I thought, fig trees. "If we can but fix our tent up there," I said, "we shall have no cause to dread, for no wild beasts can reach us." We sent Franz off to find sticks with which to make a fire, and my wife made some soup of the flesh of the porcupine, though we did not like it so well as we did the ham and cheese we brought with us. When the meal ended, my first thought was to make some steps by means of which we could reach the first strong branch of the tree. Ernest and I went in search of some thick canes that grew in the sands near by. These we cut down, bound them to 4 long poles, and thus made a pair of steps that would, we thought, reach far up the trunk. On our way back from the sands, one of the dogs made a dart at a clump of reeds, and a troop of birds rose on the wing with a loud noise. Fritz took aim at them and brought down one, which, though hurt in the wing, made use of its long legs so well that it would have got off if Juno had not held it. The joy of Fritz to have caught such a strange bird was so great that he suggested at once that we bind it by the neck and take it back with us. "Look," said Ernest, "what fine plumes he has! And you see he has webbed feet like a goose, and has long legs like a stork. Thus he can run on land as fast as he can swim." "Yes," I said, "and he can fly with more speed through the air, for these birds have great strength in their wings. In fact, few birds have such means of flight as the flamingo." My wife thought the great bird might need more food than we could spare. I told her that it would feed on small fish and worms and not rob our geese of their grain. I then tied him to a stake near the stream, and in a few days we were glad to find that he knew us and would come at a call like a tame bird. While I sat on the grass with my sons, late in the day, I thought I would try to make a bow and thus save our shot. This I did with a long cane and a piece of string, and then made a dart with a sharp point, which I shot off and found it would go straight. The branch of the tree on which we were to fix our hut was so high that our steps would not near reach it. I tied some strong thread to the dart and shot it over the branch, and then tied a piece of rope to the end of the thread, and drew that up, and at last made a long row of cane steps, with a rope at each side, which we drew up the first strong branch. The boys were now all in haste to climb the tree, but I chose that Jack, who was light of build and sure of foot, should go up first and try the strength of our work. Fritz went up next with some nails and secured the ropes to the tree, while I drove stakes in the ground to keep them firm at the foot. It was now time for me to climb the ladder, and up I went with an axe to chop off the twigs and smooth the branch that was to form the ground of our new house. I sent the boys down out of my way, and kept hard at work till it was late, for the sky was clear and the moon lent me her beams of light to see by. When I came down, my wife spread a good meal on the ground, which we ate as best we could, and then made our beds of dry moss, round which we put heaps of twigs. Then these we set on fire to keep off wild beasts and snakes. The toils of the day had made the boys tired, and they were soon in a sound sleep, but my wife and I took turns watching through the whole night. We were all out of bed as soon as light was in the sky, and we set to work hoisting up the planks that were set to form the floor of our hut. These we laid down on the branch, with their ends nailed to a cross piece of wood, that we had to fix to the trunk of the tree. Our nails were long, and we drove each one of them home, so that we had no cause to fear the strength of our work. By the time we had done this the day was far spent, and we were all glad to lay down our tools and rest. That night we lit our fires around the tree, tied the dogs to the roots, and went up to sleep out of harm's way for the first time since we left the ship. When the steps were drawn up, we all felt that we were now safe at last, and that we had brought the toils of the day to a good end.